We've been talking about financial reform for months. We finally have a final bill that is going to be presented to the House and the Senate. Everybody signed off on it. They actually all agreed to it at a little past 5 o'clock in the morning last night. So they've been working on it feverishly for the last couple of days, and we have a deal. So now it's got some good sides and some bad sides. First, let me start with the bad sides. Here's how Dylan Ratigan summarizes it. He says these are the things that are not fixed. The cops, meaning the regulators and the rating agencies, working for the crooks, and that's because Al Franken's amendment got removed, for example, so that the rating agencies still work for the banks, which doesn't make any sense. So that's among the problems. The banks are still too big to fail. I agree with him on that. If they didn't get chopped up, and if they fail now, we will still bail them out. Obama says, no, we won't. No, we won't. I don't believe that for a second. I am going to get to the good news in a second. The banks are still gambling with our deposits because the Blanche-Lincoln Amendment largely failed. I will explain that in a second. Banks allowed to do mark-to-market, which Ratigan calls mark-to-myth, which is, I don't know if you know this, the banks are allowed to say, hey, you know what, this is what I think my assets are worth. Which is, of course, absurd. They used to be mark-to-market, which was, hey, tell us what the real value of those assets are based on what the market is for that particular asset. Now it's, they just make it up. Okay, so it's absurd. They're all insolvent just based on that alone. So they still get to do that. And the banks are still getting trillions from the Fed, Fannie and Freddie, which is true. They are. And Fannie and Freddie were not tackled in this bill, even though the Republicans wanted to. And they made some good points on Fannie and Freddie. They also wanted to distract a little bit from the issue, but I probably would have accepted some of their points. And then on the Fed, well, the Fed is still doing exactly what it was doing, which is disastrous. They just recently printed $1 trillion so they could buy the worst toxic assets in the world. That's also our money, so that's awesome. So now, the good parts. All right, it's not all bad. You do have the Consumer Protection Agency. It's not exactly where it should be. It's not, in its original form, independent, strong, etc. Of course, it got watered down, and now at the end there was an exemption for the auto dealers, but it exists. So we'll see how it works later. And then we had some late-minute wins. We had a couple of things that were inserted in the bill were taken out. So shareholder control is back in. So now the shareholders will have more say in how they pick their board and their executives, et cetera, which is great, And then another late win was the brokers still have a fiduciary duty to look out for the best interest of their clients. That was going to get removed so that your brokers wouldn't have your best interest in mind. Okay, but that got put back in, so that's good news. And then the top banks, over $50 billion in assets, and the top hedge funds, over $10 billion in assets, have to pay for the bill, and that's cost $19 billion. They were, furious about that, but they did get stuck with that bill, which, of course, they have to regulate themselves so that the taxpayer doesn't keep bailing them out. That makes a lot of sense, and that's positive. Now, when you get to the two most critical issues, the Volcker Rule and the Blanche-Lincoln Amendment, that's where the real heart of the matter is. Well, the Volcker Rule was you can't do proprietary trading, meaning make money for yourself and not for your clients, because the point of the bank is to facilitate trades for people, and that's how they make money off of that, which is good. That's what they're supposed to do. Now, unfortunately, they've been taking some of that money, including depositor money, and gambling with it for themselves. And initially, Obama wanted to stop that. The final conclusion was we got about, and this is really rough, but about 60% of what we wanted there. The intricate rules on that are very complicated. But the bottom line is, as an example of JP Morgan Chase, they're still going to be able to do 40% of what they were doing before in terms of proprietary trading. So they think that cuts into their profits a little bit, but they still have significant loopholes, and they still can do trading with a certain percentage of their funds, right? So 60-40, okay. We're still in the ball game. There's still some good stuff in here. Obviously some things were massively unaddressed, but as I wrote last night, I think, and I've been talking about on the show, the most important thing is the Lincoln Amendment. Because if it swings one way, then I'll say, okay, good enough, half a loaf, let's take it and run. Okay, if it swings the other way and it turns out they actually gutted it and took it out, well then this is not enough, and then I'm afraid we'll collapse again, right? So what happened with the Lincoln Amendment? Of course, it wasn't black and white. They weren't unsavvy enough to say, okay, we're going to take it out completely and throw it in the garbage can. At the same time, well, they weren't going to keep it as it was. It was pretty strong. In fact, just yesterday I was telling you, I'm surprised it's still in there and it's still strong, and we got about a day left. I'm like, could it happen? I had a little bit of hope. So, how did the final compromise turn out? Well, I'm going to characterize it for you about, we got a third of what we wanted. Okay, so it's not, it's not, oh no, it's BS and they, it was meant to actually completely kill the whole thing and they're not going to do any of that. No. They do. There's significant chunks of derivatives trading that they will have to separate out into a different subsidiary, okay? But, here comes the two huge buts. The part of the derivatives trading that is the most lucrative, interest rates, foreign exchanges, etc., they can still do with depositors' money, backed up by depositors' money, and backed up by taxpayer money. So they get to keep the largest chunk by far. And now if you thought that butt was bad, wait till you get to the second one. And if they think it mitigates their risk, they can still do other derivatives trading. As I tell you, I think I'm being really kind by saying we got a third of what we wanted, right? Because that is a loophole so gigantic that it almost pretty much swallows up the whole rule, right? Because it's, oh, well, of course, no, I'm not trying to make an extra buck out of this. I'm just trying to mitigate my bank's risk. Of course, that's why I did the derivatives trading. That's what they said in the first place. So it's not like anything changed on that. So, but some got removed will have to get removed into a subsidiary. So now that you've seen the good and the bad, what's the final result? Probably not good enough. Am I confident that these will limit the risk that they take with our money? Or if that they fail, that we actually won't go to back them up. We'll just say, oh, okay, those guys lost the money, but luckily we walled it off enough so it doesn't affect the rest of the economy, and it doesn't affect our money, it doesn't affect our pensions, it doesn't affect our deposits. Did that job get done? Yeah, I got to say no, it didn't get done. And so, of course, Obama will tell you, this is historic, mission accomplished. No, it's done. It's the biggest financial reform since the Great Depression reforms, and everything's going to be okay from now on. Problem contained. And I think that is largely false. I think that is largely untrue.